go.
We do frequently have fictional lessons on the podcast, so it's appropriate.
Fictional what?
Fictional us's.
Oh, that's true.
You know.
Man. So I'm going to apologize to both of you right now in case I go nuts while we were podcasting, because right before we came here, Aaron, we were at I can't even say it. We were Jitty Joe's. We were at Jittery Joe's, and I got something called a Crackaccino, which
that sounds like a good plan.
I'm my butt's dragging. You know, the show is open. Ramona Quimby is open now, and you know, and just sleep is a little bit off now for waking up early in the morning, and so I'm just tired, and so I'm a little bit loopy. So we were at Jittery Joe's, and I was like, Crackaccino, what is that? I will have one.
Sounds like a great idea.
So it's basically a cappuccino made with nothing but espresso. So and it was like a 12-ounce cup. It was the medium size. So
it was the exact legal limit that you are allowed to consume of a beverage called Crackaccino.
Yes. So it was basically a giant 8 ounces of espresso and some milk.
Fantastic.
That's what I just drank.
He said, I think I'm just having a giant cup of espresso. Like, here's my Americano, and he holds up like 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And he goes, and here's what I'm drinking, and it's like the rest of his hand.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm pretty calm right now. So we've got about an hour. I drank it, 30, 40 minutes ago?
Or we should start kicking in right about...
So...
Now,
everybody pay attention to the timer on the little podcast, and about 30 minutes in, I may get naked. I don't know.
Naked.
Yeah. So how's everybody doing?
I'm doing great.
Cool.
I have started the rehearsals for Cat in the Hat, and so I'm like all sorts of excited.
Yeah.
I'm doing the national puppetry premiere of The Cat in the Hat.
Cool.
That is amazing.
When you started the read-throughs and rehearsals, like, are you guys still exploring and trying to figure out like who is best suited to what characters, or is that like already assigned?
That's assigned. Now, of course, we'll pass the puppets back and forth occasionally, but I will always voice I'm the fish. So I always voice fish, but there's like moments where somebody else has to reach in and play the fish, the puppet, for a little bit while I'm across the playboard doing something else.
Sure.
And so there's a team of 3 people most of the time on the Cat in the Hat, 1 vocal performer, very Bonraku, head, arms, and feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just does so much that as often as possible there's 3 full performers on the cat. There's the boy and the girl and the things. And so we are working out what we do with each of them. There's a script that's published through MTI, and it's got some of the most strict royalty agreements of any show I've worked on before.
Mm-hmm.
There's underscoring, like there aren't songs in the thing where we stop and sing, perform along, but there's underscoring that we are, we have to use the underscoring provided for the show.
And again, I think I don't remember if you talked about this on the podcast or if this is a conversation between us, but this is a script that was developed at the National Theatre in London and originally for human actors. And so you guys are adapting it as the first puppet presentation of this script.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the physics have gone from the impossible drawings of Dr. Seuss to a real-world human presentation with opposable thumbs to puppetry. So the physics of some of the bits, like we've worked on Up, Up, Up with a fish where he balances up on the ball and carries like everything in the house in his arms. We've worked on that and got sort of a really rough plan for how that'll work and who's going to hold what and who's going to be the tail. And at that point, all 6 of us are basically just controlling the cat and the objects in the center of the stage. And now we're starting to puzzle through all of the things And by that I mean thing 1 and thing 2.
Sure.
Like how they come out of the box, how they run around, how they fly kites in the room, how they get captured. Right? We would spend all day working out how the things get out of the box and fly the kites around the house in the 4 locations that they're shown flying.
For thing 1 and thing 2, when they escape the box the first time, you should throw these like plush thing 1 and thing 2s out into the audience and let the kids pass them around like rock concert style. And then, I don't know.
Do you have to pass thing 1 and thing 2 to the left?
No, that's the Dutchie.
Well,
you pass that on the left hand.
What about the Dougie? I think you're thinking of the Dougie.
I'm not. I've never thought
Do
of
the
the
truffle
Dougie.
shuffle.
Never thought of the Dougie. That's great, Aaron. I don't think I knew that you were voicing the fish. I think that's fantastic.
yes.
Yeah.
That is made official. I am going to be playing the fish. And so I am this frustrated, terrified, because we basically set up, because the question always has been, why is the fish talking? Why is the mother not around? And the fish seems to be, so we've decided the fish is the babysitter, and things get out of his control.
That's funny because I always kind of felt that way as a kid reading the book. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, obviously the fish
They left the fish in charge.
is the only competent person in the room, and so you leave him in charge, and he's like a proto-Klaus.
But he's trapped in the bowl, so he
Yeah.
can't actually use his authority in any functional way.
That's true. Although I got to say that fish was pretty inventive for his. He would hop out of the bowl and he'd be like, "I'm risking life and gill so that I can tell you kids don't do this thing." Darn it!
Yeah.
That's that's
And he does-
amazing.
That's the sign of a good caretaker.
That's amazing. I think
He
it's really
spends
amazing.
a
that
lot
you
of
can-
his time with like his tail tip touching the water, but the rest of him out in the air.
Just the tip. I think it's amazing that you get to say that you were the freaking fish in the freaking world puppetry premiere of that show.
Yeah.
What is, because this is a thing that's obviously been on my mind lately, but what is a director's role in a puppetry show?
It's similar in a lot of ways in that sort of outside objective eye. I mean, he's very much done a lot of the prep work. I mean, the sets and the puppets all basically had to be finished by the time we came in to rehearse. Because unlike a stage show, you can't just sort of walk around and say, okay, this is here and that's there and this is my body, I brought it with me. You have to know what the puppet can do to block the basic show. So he and the design team did a lot of pre-preparation. They've been working on this at least construction-wise from the beginning of the year and planning-wise from earlier than that. And then they've sort of blocked out the big beats of the whole show. But a lot of what we're doing is developing our version. We have a longer rehearsal period than usual. The Center for Puppetry Arts does a lot of remounts. I mean, because they have to build so much to put on a show, and their audience changes every 5 years because they move
grow
up to the next level of the audience. Yeah, their young audience is going to only be a young audience for a few years. Their youth audience is only going to be and their teen audience, they have these stages that everybody's going to move through.
Yeah.
So you can do the same young audience show once every 5 years, and it's new to the kids who are seeing it. But because this isn't a remount, it's an original production, at least at the center, we have an extended rehearsal window so we can really just sort of throw the puppets around, see what they can do, and go, oh, look, it's really cute when the thing stands on its head. Oh, who knew? Let's use that. Let's find a reason that the thing stands on his head because it looks so great with the puppet.
Cool.
Oh, it looks really awful for the cat in the hat to bend over at the waist. Let's avoid having the cat in the hat have to bend over at the waist. Maybe he kneels. Maybe he, lies out on his side and reaches up. But, you figure out what looks good, what doesn't look good. And even more so than your standard show, you don't really know what it looks like from the front while you're working. I mean, we work in a mirror room to begin with, and then we take that away so that we can start putting the energy in the puppets rather than across the room and back.
Speaking
But
of,
even in the mirror,
yeah,
even in the mirror section, you can't really see what the audience sees because you're behind, above, or under what's going on, rather than you being what's going on, you're hidden around a corner, sticking your arms into the air. So the director very much goes, "Oh, you're clearly trying to do this, but it looks like your puppet is tying its shoe.
Sure.
So try doing this some other way."
Yeah.
we had an interesting experience, right? We had an interesting experience with Ramona Quimby, the show that just opened up here in Athens, with shadow puppets, because we're using shadow puppets throughout the piece. And Adam brought in a really great trick that I was not aware of for one of our actors. So there's a scene where this old man crosses the stage behind a window, and essentially the actor's crossing, between the light and the screen.
So you see the actor's shadow projected on the screen.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And if the actor walks sideways like the actor would walk normally, it looks like this strange blob. But Adam said if you turn, it was brilliant. It's like if you turn with your back to the screen and you sidle, it looks like you're walking normally. Adam, where did you get that trick?
Yeah. It was basically to build on that. It was basically put your body parallel to the projection screen and then turn your head so that you see your face in profile.
Yeah.
And the way I got kind of adept at doing this was the very first show I worked at Lexington Children's Theater on was a show called Witness, and it's a fantastic show, but it deals with some murder plots and some other bad things. And so there was a shadow screen was employed to kind of touch on some of the more extreme emotional experiences.
Sense it a little bit.
Sure. And so a lot of the character I was playing was involved in a lot of those moments. And so a lot of my scenes ended up being played behind the shadow screen. And it became this bizarre ballet that you would do with the other actors. You would have to contort your body and, flatten yourself against the screen.
It doesn't matter at all what your bodies look like.
Right.
It only matters.
Yeah.
What the shadow, yeah. And so it was all this experimentation. And of course, we had, because the lights, what am I trying to say? We had a sense, we could see some of our shadow on the screen from our side. It was more contrasted on the audience's side in view of things. But, it gets to the point where you just kind of had to just trust that objective voice. Vivian Snipes was our director on the other side, and you just had to trust that voice at some point.
Sounded like she had passed on. She was our director from the other side.
But it was really interesting because we actually had a double challenge with this one because it wasn't the space in Lexington Children's Theater is a thrust, meaning there's a little bit of.
Right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a proscenium space where it's flat, but then the stage space goes out into the audience and you have audience on three sides. So our shadow screen wasn't even a flat shadow screen. It was a point, and then it went out on like a V. And it wasn't it wasn't a deep V,
But it's almost like, is it like you had these two surfaces that you had to sort of
There was a central point,
coordinate.
like a metal pole or something that they put in the middle. Actually, no, they wouldn't have done that because then that would have created a shadow. I think they just stapled it or somehow affixed it to the floor and ceiling so that there were no extra shadows, no extra break lines. But it was you just had to trust that what you were doing was being communicated on the other side, to the point that there was
to the great beyond.
Honestly, yeah, there were moments in the show where I only knew where to hold my hand because there was also like a spatter that was put on the front side of the shadow screen, like to break it up a little bit. And so you would kind of go, okay, there's a little purpley area of spatter that you could see. I'm going to hold my left hand right there because when I do that, it lines up with what the other person's shadow is doing. Even though it may not be in line with their actual body upstage of the screen or anywhere near that other actor, but it looked like I was touching them.
That makes me think a lot of film acting and like the proximity issues, because when you do close-ups, you do scenes of two people talking to each other in a movie, and you are ridiculously close and like uncomfortably close.
Yeah.
Smell the hummus you had for lunch close, and then when you see it on screen, it's somehow we believe it's a natural distance, and it's not.
Well, it's all about playing with perspective, and I guess that's all. It's always why you need that objective eye of the director on the other side.
Puppets.
Oh wow! But go ahead and tell them, Jeff.
Apparently, one day during notes, because we have shadow puppets, and because I'm some days more collaborative than others, and just because my tone is funny sometimes in rehearsal when I'm tired and I'm just giving notes, you call out someone's name before you do, the character's notes, like Beezus, cross stage left on so-and-so and so-and-so line. And to the shadow puppet team, apparently I just looked up and I went, puppets?
And then proceeded to give them a command. But from our perspective in the audience, it looked like he was referring to all of the actors as a collective.
Puppets?
Puppets stands for me, Wow. Well, speaking of adapting things, taking a children's book to a human play to a puppet play.
Okay.
There is a little thing I came across this week from Waterloo Labs. And the gentlemen that are part of that company, Hunter Smith, Tim Lynch, and Chris Culver, basically made a live-action Mario Kart.
I might have seen this.
You may have. Yeah. There's some YouTube videos. I was telling Jeff, I was actually discussing it with the kid that plays Howie in our Ramona Quimby. He had also seen it, so we were geeking out a little bit as I was preparing for today's podcast. But essentially what they did was they took go-karts and stripped them down and rebuilt them with pneumatics and other things so that, for people out there that have never played Mario Kart, it's a racing game where you race as other characters from the Mario world, Donkey Kong, Wario, Princess Peach, all those things. And as you are racing along the track, you can grab certain power-ups, things like shells you can throw at the other people, or, invincibility stars, things like that. So what they did was they took go-karts, stripped them down, and put pneumatics and some radio-controlled, responsive devices that would affect the operation of the go-karts while you were going around the track. And then what they did was, scattered around the track, they took plush representations of the power-ups from Mario Kart, like the mushrooms and the turtle shells and things like that, and they put little RFID chips in them. And so what happens is when you're going around the track and you pick one of these plushies up, and the chip gets into proximity of the sensors on the cart, you essentially have that power-up.
Right.
And so then you can use it against the other players that you are racing around with.
And do you just chuck it at them, or what?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You literally
I was expecting them to have little cannons.
Right. Like if it's a power-up, for example, like a mushroom or something, they did something, they said some servo that they put in the accelerator transmission of the go-kart. So it literally does give you a little bit of a boost when you activate the mushroom. But if it's something like a turtle shell that you throw at somebody, you do have to literally try to throw it in the proximity of the other person. And when that plush turtle shell gets into proximity of the other player, it will then screw up their steering or whatever for a moment. And but they did the whole thing. They had to dedicate a wireless router where all of the components of this Mario go-kart thing were all running off of sort of a contained system, server. Yeah. And it was just there's some videos you can watch, but the cool thing is they kind of did this just to see if they could figure out how to do it. And so all the coding to make this whole system work, they have for free on their site. And so you could conceivably, if you had all the hardware to do all the, RFID transmissions, and they even tell you what hardware they used in the making of this, and you could conceivably recreate it if you had all of this money to do it. But it's really cool. You can go. It's Waterloo Labs, and Yeah, check it out. It's ridiculous to watch.
Speaking of coding,
Yeah.
I went to Starbucks recently. I'm sure everyone is surprised. But Adam has identified that I have the mutant ability known as...
You are the Starbucks whisperer.
I
That's
am
how I
Starbucks
referred to you the other day.
That's right. Where apparently any town I go into, very quickly I establish a rapport with the staff and sometimes get some free stuff or whatever. And so at this particular juncture, what happened was one of the baristas is a daughter of someone in the show. She showed up at tech. It was hilarious. I was like, oh, okay, so-and-so. And so that was my ambassador to the rest of the staff. At which point I get to know this guy who's a coder. He does Ruby. Say this right. He does Ruby on Rails, and I think Ruby and Rails are separate things, but I don't know enough. I just know enough to know the words. But basically, he codes web application development. And so today I'm sitting there and I'm working on this stuff at the coffee shop, and he says, "Hey Jeff, can I pick your brain about something?" And I'm like, yes. And he says, okay, so because he knows I'm in theater and because he knows that I like to talk, out of my butt about coding and pretend I know stuff, he said, okay, so I would love to pick your brain sometime soon about the pain points of being a theater artist and getting your work seen by other by people that would need to see your work. I guess he was essentially talking in a self-promotion vein.
Sure, in the context of getting things that
Jobs.
he's creating out there. Like, was it a larger, like he was trying to find a parallel between what you do and what he does?
Actually, no. He was trying to find a way to collaborate. He was looking to know. I think he was looking for essentially creating some sort of web service for actors to get seen. Okay. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I said, and I addressed it, what's out there currently that kind of does that and what doesn't. But I said, what I really interests me, because this is a big pain point of mine recently, is looking at the production side of things. And maybe there's software that exists, but I'm having a hard time finding it. I said, with the show that I just directed, I was looking for a really good way to have essentially a digital call board, a way to have one place where all of the artists and all of the production company could go to get information relevant to them about the show, and sort of one-stop shopping, so that we would sort of, because I'm not a big, I'm a big fan of using email a certain way, but I was not a big fan of using email to collaborate in sort of the theatrical process, and so. I ultimately turned to a thing called Trello, which I had kind of poked around with before, and I liked and I saw potential with, but never had a good run at. And was like, okay, let me try this and see if human beings will actually use it. Right? Trello is Trello. It is basically project management free web software. But what I like about it is I think it implements what was some kind of Japanese system of basically cards that exist on lists, and you can think of them as each card can contain like checklists and attachments and all this stuff, and you sort of move them down the line as you go. Go there and figure it out. You'll see how it works pretty quickly. And I said, this is a pretty good solution, and everyone on the company adopted it really quickly, and it worked just fine. But I said, ultimately, honestly, it wasn't specific enough for what I needed. I was able to break down things by department, and be like, okay, props, this is kind of what we need, and set, here's where we're at, and here's our problems with this, that, and the other. But I said, I bet if you really want to talk about developing a piece of software, then why don't we look at that? Look at something that we can do with production. So I'm excited because I've got a meeting with him. I don't know if anything will come of it or not, but I've got a meeting with him Saturday morning to sort of talk about that kind of stuff. And it's I would be interested, fellow theater artists, in what might be useful in a collaborative production style piece of software. Adam and I talked about this a little bit offline before.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my hesitation, not even hesitation, or my understanding of it right now. For me, I could not see the biggest benefit of switching over to a system like that. Like, I feel for example, like a rehearsal report or a production report that has all the information in it, and if that's just emailed out to the appropriate people,
Right.
isn't that enough?
I am going to take the side, obviously.
Sure.
I'll take the side for no, because obviously I think not, especially having been using the system like I've been recently, and it being so successful. But Aaron, since where are you on this?
Yeah, you're a fresh brain.
I am a positive skeptic. You know, I don't know that. I think it would be difficult to make the switch. I think you'd have to sort of really change some human behaviors. I feel like it is potentially a thing that could be utilized, but it does. You know, I check so many things that right now, if you send me an email about what props I'm supposed to make, I get that, and I do it. And if I have to check another thing that doesn't replace that, it, you know, even if it specializes and once I'm in that thing,
Yeah.
it's limited. It's still another thing of my in my daily rotation that I have to make sure that I'm in and checking and finding out about.
Right. What if it replaced the email communication for the production? Like, for example, what I've been trying here has been, okay, the board is law. Like, if it is not on the board, and the way that I've sort of helped people kind of get into it is saying, guys, help me understand. If it is on the board, if it is not on the board, as far as I understand, it does not exist, right? Either it's nothing, it's not something we've discussed or anything else. If you sent me email about it or whatever, because so many emails I've had, you know, get lost, or someone, to be honest, is able to sort of feign a thing and say, well, in other situations, say, oh, well, you know, I didn't get it when they did, and there's all kinds of weird. I understand that to a degree you may be substituting one problem for another, but in this, in me saying, okay, look, guys, everyone's got to communicate on the board, since the board is so dynamic, and since it's basically like you can get in there, just take care of your little thing if you need to. Like Costume sends me notes all the time, you know, and she and I are able to sort of talk. And yeah, if I want to get that information, notifications in an email, I can, and I can kind of stick-ish to my email system. But it's way better to just go there on the board, and then for me as director guy and me and my stage manager, I can be on page with where everyone is at without being annoying and in their way and like checking in and doing that kind of like, hey, where are you at? Elbow, elbow, nudge, nudge. They can just tell me where they're at. And if they haven't updated something, then I assume it's not done. And when they update me with it, I go, oh, okay, great, it's done. I can quit worrying about it. And, you know, I use little color things, like green means, you know, as far as I know, it's done. Red means, hey, what's going on? Yellow is, you know, I think we're working on it. You know what I mean?
Sorry, you're talking about that, and that's making me think of The Office. Michael Scott. I was like season 1 or 2, and he had all these
5 levels of urgency.
Well, there was that, but there was also he had all these note cards on all the different clients that they had.
Yeah.
And it had facts about them, and I can't remember exactly what the slip up was, but somebody found a card and accidentally revealed one of the. Oh, it was, I think, Dwight outed one of the client's sons.
Yeah.
And because he found the color code on that line was like green.
Yeah.
And he thought green meant go, like go ahead and use it. And like Michael's interpretation was green was go past it and ignore it. Like something ridiculous like that. It was
Well, I think that maybe, Aaron, I don't know what you think about this, but maybe it's in that funny situation with The Office, it's a problem of assuming you know what somebody else means, right? What's been really great for me about the Trello board has been being able to say none of us can assume that we know anything that's not on the board. It's like it's no longer safe to assume that, because there's so many situations that I've seen before we moved to the board where it was like, oh, didn't you get the email about this? Or, oh, well, I told so-and-so this, and so I thought you knew this. Or, you know, just kind of a lot of communication that I'm not saying that was just kind of dropped. And while I'm not saying ultimately, you know, email is not an effective way to do it, but I think maybe you got to be really strict and clear about it. And while I know this is sort of a different subject of problems, I think this is saying this is the record, and I think it bypasses a lot of assuming.
I think, when you're talking about assuming, I think what it is with email, people are, like you said, assuming and doing might have different interpretations of what the response is. They might respond to every single email with a confirmation of, "Yep, I got it."
Right.
Or other people you might not hear from,
Right.
but they're working on whatever information was contained on it.
Right.
The difference is with Trello, you are setting up the parameters of what. You know what I mean? What
Right.
the rules are, and so I think that's your biggest difference.
Sure. I mean, and whenever I do set up email systems, like I always try to ask for confirmation if I can. Like a lot of times when I send out the emails, I'm like, a first step is being like, please confirm if you got this. But a lot of times, people just don't because it's just what they do. Aaron, I don't know what you think about it.
Let me ask a question of both of y'all, because this
Okay,
is
okay.
again, I'm right now. I cannot see the. Not even identify what the argument is that would completely win me over for Trello. But let me ask
Or
this
an
question.
organization software of any because
Right.
we are non-partial to blah 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 productivity software. So if you are seeking to sponsor our Technique podcast,
So my question is, the difference between an email system where we are sending the information to the receiver and putting that in their lap and saying it is your responsibility to respond to the information you have received, as opposed to putting the information in a location and expecting them to go and access it. That's the contrast for me.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there in a lot of ways. Like I was saying, even if all of that information is in one location for the project, it's still adding to what I'm logging into every day.
Right.
Like, I ran a theater with digital collaboration for 2 years. The Dancing Monkey Cabaret was all digital collaboration because we couldn't pay people to stop working until the last minute, and then we would all get together and go from this weird digital creation and figure out how to put it up in a week. And it kind of worked. But we ended up using a lot of the Google collaborative software because we were all already in an email. And it was less of a change. I mean, I guess technically you're opening a second tab to do that as well, but it sort of felt more connected to what I was already doing. And that's where the human element comes in, changing human behavior. I feel like, oh, well, Google Docs is the same as Google Email. It's all just, an extension of this one system. And I would tag all the emails that came in. I'd have automatic filters, so I knew what was coming in based on who was sending it to me, and it would immediately show up with a big banner on it that said script update or something, just because of the automatic filters. And if they didn't catch it, I could just tag it myself. And we ran sort of hodgepodge, so we were technically using more settings, but it was all sort of built around this core that people were tending to use anyway, which was their email accounts.
Right. But aren't you more email organized than the average bear in that respect?
Sure.
But being a collaborator
Right.
in that organization and the way it worked, I did not go to Google Docs and go to the area that was set aside for scripts and developments and things we were doing. I was reliant on the email updates that I got.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
right. One of my favorite directors has this interesting way of putting things, and she says a lot of directors expect everyone to talk their language. And what really makes, in her mind, a successful director, and I've started to pick that up, is that everyone gets to talk how they want, and it's the director's job and responsibility to talk everybody else's languages.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to Adam, it was a direct email, person to person, one to one.
It's true, yeah.
When I was with certain other people, I would, I would just put something in the calendar, and a script would show up in my mailbox a couple days later. And I just sort of knew how I had to take the effort on myself to speak everybody's languages.
That's interesting because I think I can't. I mean, I can, I suppose, but I don't work that way. I mean, we joke puppets, but like really, I don't think my brain I just can't do that because I think part of what happens to me is I say, and maybe this is just situations that I've worked in before, where I go, okay, if so-and-so got hit by a bus, what's the quickest way I could get them up to date on exactly where we are so I can just say, go, 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 do. You know, if our customer was in a very unfortunate situation where her father passed away. And so we lost our costumer for several days. Now, at the time, the board, was not in place. There was a second costumer on standby. And I realize now that at a glance I could say, hey, this is exactly where we're at. As far as I know, this is exactly where we're at. And that has a great appeal to me because it feels very scalable. And I suppose to a degree it's less human in a way, except that I don't think that it is. I think it shows a great amount of respect for the process, for the team, and for the individuals in the process, and saying, hey, we're all in this one place, and let's. I don't know.
Do you think you're unique in that regards? Because you think about the way people follow certain individuals on Twitter or like certain things. You know what I mean? They want the information to come to them directly, as opposed to me going to my favorite celebrity or singer's blog every day. Me going to them as opposed to it being an automatic thing that's sent to me, as I would compare that to
all right,
email.
Here's what I'll say. Yeah. Okay. So in this particular service, and I know we're talking about just this one, but in this particular service, number one, you can log in with your Google account, which is a big draw that got a lot of people to even try it. I was like, if you've got a Google account, you just log in, you're already there. But is the notification system, and other apps have these as well. But basically, you could just get an email about it, or you can get an app, or you can get a text message or whatever, and you can choose what parts of the process. Essentially, you can choose what parts of the process you need to subscribe to, right? And who you need to listen to in the process, so that if you have nothing to do with another department and you don't need to know what's going on there, you don't have to have that information pushed to you directly. In basically almost in the same way that you would get an email. It's just that you open it up, and in the situation where if they're emailing the notifications to you, let's say, you open it up and you can see what happened, and if there's anything that you need to do about it, you click on the link and it's going to take you to the board. Rather than replying to an email. They might even have an inline reply and stuff. I don't know. It might be flexible enough to adapt to your situation. But I think, at least with this piece of software that I've seen, there's the opportunity for both direct notification and whole group record and accountability. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do, at the basic functional level of the software itself, see benefits and uses, but I also see the human complication of making changes, period. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a good idea to make changes and go with better software and technology, but it is a new workflow that you have to take on.
Sure, I know I'm the weird guy that we know how I feel about email. We know how I feel about email.
Yeah, but you're just essentially. I think Aaron's right. It's a new workflow paradigm, and I think the majority of the people out there, this is not the way they think.
Right.
That's
and I had that same trepidation going into it, and I'll shut up about this, but but I was genuinely surprised and grateful that it was adopted as wholeheartedly and quickly as it was. And there are some people that have never joined the board because I never said it was mandatory. I just said, hey, if you only ever just want to read it, that's fine. I said, this is where I'm putting everything so that we can collaborate. And those that have jumped on board really jumped on board. And those who never did, thankfully in this particular situation, didn't really need to in the process because maybe if they did, I might have pushed my project manager a little bit and be like, come on, I really need you to join the board, but maybe not. But I was surprised at how much.
I think you approached it in a really great way in that you were doing a time-sensitive, single episode project. This is how we are doing this project. You do not have to make a life change. You just have to work with me this way for this thing.
Right.
Which lets people sort of get into it and dip their toes in the water, knowing that they get to escape in another month and a half again.
Sure.
And then by the end of the month and a half, they love it, and that's how they want to do all the projects from then on.
Which is good bait, because that's how I'm going to be running my next project with Academy, and that's how I'm trying to get the whole company to move over. And so far, everyone on the company really is digging it.
Let me ask you, with the Trello sort of organizational thing, the people that have adopted it, are they more artistically inclined? What groups are on board with this style of workflow?
Tech savvy artist types.
Okay.
I went with Trello because it's so visual. It's not a bunch of lists and stuff. It is cards.
You color
can
code
grab
everything
them and
in your
move
life,
them.
so it doesn't surprise me that.
Yeah. And I know skeuomorphism's going away, but I just like that, everything is modular and contained in these little cards, and the cards can get so detailed. You can add as much as you need in a card. If you've got a prop, in this one little card for this one prop, people can attach photos of it. They can say, if they want to, they don't have to, but if they want to, they create a checklist saying, we've got a rehearsal prop that'll be here, and we'll get the actual thing by this day. People can comment on, say, this is great.
I actually was turned off a bit by how spread out and pinboard-like everything about it is. I like my thing in lists and trees.
Yeah, I
at
can't
least
do
digitally.
that. Yeah.
And the stuff I've seen you work on always tends to be visual and open and spread out, and so I actually find daunting to look at the Trello board and see 7 stacks of different color-coded cards.
There's JPEGs in my Word document. There's Word documents in my JPEG.
Let's make them an EPUB. And everybody's happy. All right, well, we've beaten this board to death. We should move on.
Hey, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
We're 30 minutes. Well, actually, we're 40-something minutes in, and I have not freaked out yet. My heart hasn't exploded from the Crackaccino.
Well, let me attempt to throw you over the edge.
Do it.
Because
Aaron.
I also have a little topic on adaptation and transition and change.
Push me.
That I teased a little bit in the sign-offs last week. We have talked in the past that Twitter is the new modern sonnet. So therefore, it stands to reason that sexting is the new modern artistic nude.
Okay.
Go on.
I will go on. I am talking about artist Karen Finley. She has a new gallery exhibit that she is working on, and it is called Sext Me If You Can. And boy, this tickles me in a lot of different ways.
Well, you've got your update set to vibrate, so.
There you go. So she works in this group, and she takes photo sext messages, erotic sext photos, and she paints them and turns them into gallery art.
Oh.
Wow, and I guess she can because they're public images.
Well, they are actually sent specifically to her.
Oh, okay.
And so you can't just sext her naked pictures of yourself and expect her to make art out of it. I mean, she might, but that's not really how the gallery works. The first half of the gallery exhibit is for a set amount of time. I think it's a month or so. There is a photo studio set up in the museum. And you have to sign up, and you basically buy one of her canvases. So the front half of the gallery is the actual canvases, and there's one really big one, and 5 medium ones, and 20 little ones, and 50 papers, just drawing sheets. And you can buy them at a different tiered scale. I think the top size is 500, and a piece of paper will be 200. And you basically buy the canvas and an appointment, and you go and show up at the museum and go into this sectioned off private room where you strip down and take whatever nude photos of yourself you would like on your cell phone.
Wow.
In the museum, and send them to her at a special number that you get when you have bought into the Canvas program.
Wow, this is something I would totally do. If
I
we want,
know, I know.
If we want to get an
Not me,
Art
like, in
Technique
general, like you.
Kickstarter campaign, I'll just $200 just to do like the low level one. I will totally do this in the name of art.
You should like kick in at least the price for your plane ticket too. Come on.
Where is it
that?
again? Where he said kick in the price for the plane ticket. Where is it again?
Yeah, it's New York exhibit.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
You need to
in
get
New
Adam a nice
Events
place to
Museum in New
stay.
York.
That's right.
Come on, like 500
Waldorf
guys.
Astoria.
Like 500. Our host, actually, Marty, has some hilarious stories about the Waldorf Astoria.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's cool. Do they just display? Well, do they just display them in the physical gallery, like the finished products, or is there like an online gallery, or is it?
I don't think you ever get to see the original photos, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I guess
Those are all on Tumblr.
no. I'm just asking, like, ultimately, where are these works displayed?
They're gonna be displayed in the same gallery.
Oh, so
once she finishes them.
Okay. Now I understand. Gotcha.
And then at the end of the gallery showing, you get your painting. You've basically bought a commission by buying the canvas.
All right.
So you end up with your own sexed painting.
Wow. I'm totally down with it. Internet, make it happen.
I just see like this over your fireplace, and it's like some sort of like black and white, and you're like lounging.
What if I bring my own canvas? Like if I bring a black crushed velvet canvas.
She's not gonna do you a velvet.
Come on.
Wow.
Nothing sexier than painted on black velvet.
All right, tack on an extra $100 to the Kickstarter for the velvet canvas.
Well, you could certainly get in touch with her
How
and
about
ask
velour?
if
How about
she'd be
velour?
willing to do you on black velvet.
Let's go
Do
for
Me on
velour.
Black Velvet. The name of my hit single.
Do me on black.
Do Me on Black Velvet.
Wow.
Off of the album Egregious Mistakes.
But it seems to be a commission show, so I suppose she would take a private commission as well as a gallery commission.
You think she gets a lot of creepers?
Ooh, yeah. Jeff said, do you think she gets a lot of creepers?
Probably. I mean, who else would want to take photos of themselves and then have them turned into paintings in a gallery?
And make other people pay for it, Adam.
Sure. I imagine the price would probably keep most of the low-level creepers away. You might attract high-level creepers like, I don't know, Dennis Rodman or...
But then take their money. Take their money.
Take their money. Or Kim Jong-un or somebody. I don't know.
You just put those together. You were just wanting to cite.
Well, he went there.
I know. You're
Okay.
just putting them. I know. You just let it go.
Okay, I will. I'm totally down with it. And if people want to send me sexts, I will be more than willing to scribble out something in crayon on a Denny's placemat. And
We will set
Please
up
send
a
your
special
nude
Google
and erotic
Plus number
photos.
where you can send your sext photos to Adam.
Just send them to arttechniquepodcast@gmail.com.
Oh yeah, just email him in.
actually, we'll start a Trello
We'll start a
board.
Tumblr.
We'll start a Trello board. And we'll have people
And
send
some of
us
them will
the
be
original-
labeled blue, and some of them will be labeled.
Actually, all of them will be labeled blue. We'll have the original images in one column, and then we'll have my crude crayon man-child drawings of them in another column.
drawn on construction paper and paper
I
plates.
feel like we are running close to legal grounds here, but I would really like to see this project happen. I think it would be hilarious and amazing
now,
all
Aaron-
at the same time.
And this kind of wraps it all up back to something I almost said at the very beginning, Aaron, but didn't quite get a chance to do when you were saying that you are the fish in Cat in the Hat, which very much acts as the babysitter voice of reason, and how you have been that for me in my life many, many times, Aaron. And in this one particular instance, you are failing spectacularly, which I love.
All I know is my entire high school career was ruled by Blue Thing 1, Blue Thing 2.
What?
Waka 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 waka. Yeah, it'll sing. Oh, there
I got
it
it now.
is. There it is.
I would imagine that'd be just as hairy, too. So.
Okay. Wow, you got me. Crackaccino has kicked in.
All
That's
right,
it.
maybe the Crackaccino has.
Yeah. Well,
Please don't
yeah.
send any nude photos to our email address.
Please,
Yeah, well,
please don't.
we should probably start to to wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, wrap it up before you send us the pictures.
Okay, the Crackaccino has definitely kicked in for Adam. Aaron, you got anything else, or should we move on to sign-offs?
That I want to do before sign-offs?
Yeah. Anything?
No, that was the new museum gallery I wanted to talk about.
When's your show open?
We open June 12th, and we play through July 28th. So if you're in the Atlanta area, come on down. You got plenty of time.
Tickets are what? Puppet.org?
Puppet.org, yep.
Okay.
And for those
Am I the only one? People say .com, but people spell out edu and org. Am I the only one who actually says edu and org?
I don't make it a liquid U like you do. That, you pretentious bastard.
Wait,
edu. No. I always say .edu, and I sometimes say .org.
Oh, okay.
Or .org, but org. It sounds so funny coming out of the mouth.
Org, edu.
B-I-Z.
Why wouldn't it be an edu when it's educational?
No, I agree with you there. I just hate the way it sounds.
Okay.
Edu.
Because I said I was giving somebody an email address, and I said .edu, and they were like, "What?" And I was like,
"Yeah, most people don't do that, Aaron."
Well, what does the .com stand for?
Commerce, commercial, right? Am I right, Aaron?
Yeah, commerce or commercial. I don't know which it is.
Well, that's a different sound then with com.
Look,
and
adam.co.uk.
I'm just saying.
TV/
What about the .govs?
.js.
Gov.
I say .gov.
.gov. Okay.
What about
.me?
What about .my needs?
Oh,
okay.
Until it gets to the two letters, like I say .co.uk.
I say .co. No, I don't. I say .co. I don't know what I say.
Or .it for Italian. But with all of the ones I'm use on a daily basis, com, edu, org, and gov, I say them.
Huh. That's neat. I really haven't heard too many people say edu, but I'm your friend, so maybe every time it's been you, and I'm attributing it to other people.
Sure. Or if we hear people start to use that term, we'll
attribute it to Aaron.
We'll attribute to Aaron.
And
as
Aaron,
the founder.
okay,
and
I'm going to
father.
start a move for Aaron Gottlieb to get his own Wikipedia entry. So, because he is not allowed, and I feel like as 1 degree off from Aaron Gottlieb as members of this podcast, we are not allowed, in my opinion, would be unethical for us to create a Wikipedia entry for Aaron Gottlieb.
Oh, I see.
I think someone out there should create a Wikipedia entry, AARONGOTLIEB, and please attribute him for popularizing .edu as a pronunciation.
And being an actor, puppeteer,
That's right.
world
No.
traveler. Come
Dream-
on.
Focus
Dream
on one
big.
thing. Focus on one thing. That's your foot in the door. First .edu, then the world.
All right.
We should sign off.
The problem is how you spell how I say it.
You spell it like a
Because
sneeze.
You use IPA, and then everybody
Yeah,
agrees.
it's-
Like a sneeze.
I never learned IPA. It is one of my great shames
drink
as
a
an
lot of
actor.
IPA.
I do drink a lot of IPA, and I learned IPA, although I
Yeah.
don't use it very much anymore. International Phonetic Alphabet for the lay person.
You know, love don't live here anymore. I was just trying to take your thing and
I'm okay.
All right, moving
Sign
on.
off.
sign off.
I'm Aaron Gottlieb, and I want to be a schwa because they're never stressed.
Sometimes they are. There's never.
No.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
I'm Jeff, and I can't wait to go to Atlanta to watch Aaron shake his things.
I'm Adam, or actually, I'm a Wario, and I'm gonna win.
Holy crap. Crackaccino's kicked in.
Crackaccino's kicked in.
Calling the team. Take him down.
Come on, we're going streaking. Bye. Woo. I'm gonna take pictures, and then I'm gonna paint a picture of it. Woo.
Wikipedia.
I'm streaking. Woo.
Wikipedia. Aaron Gottlieb. Edu. We bid you.
Edu.
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 Go.
Bless you.